Welcome, everyone. I am Bob Wurzelbacher, the director of the Respect Life Office for the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, and this is our video podcast series that we call Being Pro-Life. This is the first episode of a series we're producing on the new Ohio Ballot Initiative to amend the Ohio Constitution to include what is called the right to reproductive freedom. And in this series, we're going to discuss why it is that this amendment is so dangerous to Ohioans, especially to women, and how you can get involved to educate the public. Today's guest is Peter Raines, Executive Director of Ohio Right to Life. Welcome, Peter.
Bob, it's so great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me on.
You know, Peter, first off, I just want to remind everyone that you are no stranger to this podcast series. We had you on as a guest in February of 2020, right before the pandemic started. And there you were talking about your involvement with 40 Days for Life and with sidewalk counseling outside of abortion centers. And that same month, we featured Abby Johnson of Unplanned Fame. And I just wanted to let you know that your podcast episode received only 7 listens less than Abby Johnson did that month. So I think that's a pretty good claim to fame.
Well, they came to see you, Bob. No doubt about it.
I doubt that. So, Peter, first off, let's talk about the language of the document and why it is that, although it might sound reasonable at first, particularly to people who might even be generally pro-choice, well, why it is that it's actually much more extreme than those who are pushing this amendment would have us believe.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bob, for the question. To give people context, too, in this past year, across the nation, there was actually 4 different initiatives that were passed by pro-choice side to get ballot initiatives passed in individual states, California, Michigan, Vermont, for example. And there was also pro-life initiatives that were proposed in Kansas and Kentucky. And the pro-life side is 0 for 6 in these particular ballot fights. And so now the left has come to Ohio, what is generally considered a little bit more of a conservative state on the issue of life. And they're looking to pass similar type language here in the state of Ohio. The left is very good. They're very crafty at looking at language and kind of making it sound innocuous to a certain extent. So if you look at the particular language for this ballot initiative that they're proposing, and it's 2 groups, it's the Ohio Physicians for Reproductive Rights and Planned Parenthood and the ACLU. So it's those kind of groups that have come together to form a coalition. It started out as just the Ohio Physicians and the Planned Parenthood, but they've kind of worked together now to propose this ballot initiative. But it seems, again, somewhat nebulous, something that a lot of people would vote for in the state of Ohio, just simply saying that every individual has a right to make and carry out one's own reproductive decisions, including but not limited to decisions on contraception, fertility treatment, continuing one's own pregnancy, miscarriage care, and abortion. Now, abortion is the last thing that is mentioned, and a lot of those things that are first mentioned in the amendment, you might think, well, I'm okay with some of those things. Now, we as Catholics, of course, we look at contraception. We know that that is a grave evil, but we also know that there's a lot of Catholics who do use contraception on a regular basis. So we know, unfortunately, coming into this, that we're a little bit behind in the polls when it comes to if someone just reads the amendment and they look at that language, a lot of people will actually end up supporting the amendment until we get the word out there as far as what this actually does. So, Bob, if it's okay, I'd like to walk through a couple of those words and tell your listeners why these words really matter and how it changes the outcome of the amendment. So let me tell you a couple of things that it does immediately, and then we'll dig into some of those actual words and look at the dangers that those words propose. So first and foremost, this is going to eliminate parental consent. If you have a 14, 15-year-old daughter who's seeking an abortion or even a sex change surgery, they're going to be able to achieve and get those things without your consent as a parent. Number 2, it's going to eliminate the 24-hour waiting period here in the state of Ohio. It's going to eliminate the Non-Discrimination Against Down Syndrome Act here in the state. It will allow for painful late-term abortions after 15 weeks. We know at 15 weeks, the child can experience pain in the womb. This would allow abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy. It's going to allow chemical abortions on demand and over the counter, purchase of these drugs without a doctor involved. And then lastly, it's going to eliminate health and safety standards for women. So why do I say that? Those are some big claims. Well, if we go to the language itself, I think we can kind of walk through and see why this is the case. Again, the name of this particular constitutional amendment is the right to reproductive freedom with protections for health and safety. The unfortunate thing is there's no really protections for health and safety. But let's walk through the language and let me back up some of those claims that I was making. So first, this amendment early on says that every individual has a right to make and carry out one's own reproductive decisions, including but not limited to decisions on contraception, fertility treatment, continuing one's own pregnancy, miscarriage care, and abortion. Now, first and foremost, by using the word individual and not limiting it to adults, this right to abortion would apply to teenagers. It would apply to anybody of any age. The term woman or mother is not even used in this document. So we have to ask the question, what else is included in reproductive decisions? Because it also states that this is not limited to the issues that I just mentioned. So it's not limited to contraception, fertility treatment, continuing one's own pregnancy. So they're not about protecting women here, Bob, because they don't even use the term in the document. This is all about access to abortion. And legal scholars have chimed in that this goes beyond the issue of abortion as well, that this involves transgender health care also, because Planned Parenthood has become the second leading provider for cross-sex hormones in the country, helping our young people transition to a different sex. And we know from the parental consent perspective as well, that on Planned Parenthood's own website, they let teenagers know that this is how they access their services, including abortion, without their parents getting to know about it. So they tell your teenager, for example, right off their website, if your state does not have parental involvement laws, you may be able to get a judge's permission to have an abortion without telling your parents. This is called judicial bypass. And then they go into explaining that on their very own website. All right, furthermore, why do we say that this is going to impact and allow abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy? Well, again, this is where just words matter. So they say in the document, again, that in the professional judgment of the pregnant patient's treating physician, it is necessary to protect the pregnant patient's life or health. That term health there is really important. Roe's companion case, Doe v. Bolton, the court defined health to include all factors: physical, emotional, psychological, familial, and the women's age relevant to the well-being of the mother. In most states, that is broad enough to permit virtually any abortion in the 7th, 8th, or 9th months of pregnancy, if any of these reasons is invoked. So blessed be God, Doe and Roe have fallen because of the Dobbs decision. But the reality is that case law that built up and held on to abortion rights for so many years in this country still exists in the minds and hearts of even our judges. So it's going to be very easy for these laws that are positioned in the state of Ohio not to be enforced as soon as this amendment would pass. In fact, we have an interview this past week where the ACLU lawyer here in the state of Ohio said exactly that all the laws on the books here in the state of Ohio would not be enforced against abortion because of some of this language that's in the amendment. Now, there's another part here which is really important, which I think helps the listeners understand or appreciate how this would eliminate health and safety standards, because these, again, are the 24-hour waiting period, for example, that's been passed here in the state of Ohio. This would all be impacted by this language. Why do we say that? Well, again, in the amendment, it says that the state shall not directly or indirectly burden, penalize, prohibit, interfere with, discriminate against either an individual's volunteer exercise of this right or a person's or entity that assists an individual exercising this right, unless the state demonstrate that is using the least restrictive means to advance the individual's health in accordance with the widely accepted and evidence-based standards of care. Now, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, 1992, paved the way for more restrictions on abortion access because it declared that restrictions were allowed as long as there was not an undue burden. Now, while Casey fell, again with Roe, the standard still has an impact on our judicial system and philosophy when it comes to abortion. Burden to an activist judge could mean anything here in the state of Ohio. And again, you can't directly or indirectly interfere with anyone getting an abortion, anyone even helping or assisting an individual getting an abortion. So, Bob, I came on your podcast a year or so ago to talk about sidewalk advocacy. Could that be considered a burden, interfering with someone trying to access an abortion at an abortion facility? Well, of course it would, according to this language. So that's why this language is just, quite frankly, scary. And when you look at them using this widely accepted and evidence-based standards of care, well, who is going to determine that? And will that be determined by who's in the White House at any given time? So if, for example, right now, we have a Food and Drug Administration, Health and Human Services, all individuals who have been appointed by an administration which is supportive of abortion, and they have all kind of laxed the rules, for example, on the chemical abortion pill, saying that we don't even need to track any of the injuries that might come from the chemical abortion pill whatsoever. The American Medical Association, or ACOG, their stance has been made very clear on the issue of abortion. In fact, telling individuals that they shouldn't be doctors or nurses if they don't believe in abortion. So are those the widely accepted and evidence-based standards of care that we're going to be operating under as a society? So that's where we say that this language is frightening, that it could eliminate parental consent, eliminate any health and safety standards we have here in the state of Ohio, allow late-term abortions on demand, and eliminate any bills that we have passed to protect human life, including the Down Syndrome Non-Discrimination Act. So the language on its face seems pretty nebulous or placid, not something that would really impact individuals' everyday lives, but the opposite is really the truth here. This is an extreme and dangerous amendment, and we need the church to rise up and to share the information with your family, your friends, your neighbors about just how extreme this is. We do not want abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy here in the state of Ohio, but if this amendment passes, that's exactly what we're going to get.
All right, Peter, well, thanks for that quick analysis of what's going on with this ballot initiative. Can we say a little bit about the difference between, say, passing a law that does the same kind of thing as this ballot initiative is talking about versus changing the words of the Constitution itself? Why is it that this is so much more dangerous and just so different from just passing another law?
That's a really good question. When you look at Constitution, so the Constitution of the United States is the founding document, right, of our nation. And it's where every legislative branch, when they're looking for passing laws, they got to make sure that it fits within the Constitution. When the executive branch is enforcing laws, they're making sure they're doing that within the framework of the Constitution. And the same with the judiciary. When they're looking at laws and based upon whether or not they think this fits within our society, it's whether or not it fits within the Constitution. It's the same thing at the state level. The state level Constitution is our founding document for the state of Ohio. So if this gets into Ohio's Constitution, you cannot pass any more pro-life laws. It'll be impossible, for example, to pass a bill that says life begins at conception here in the state of Ohio, or preborn children are persons, or that you should be able to, have maybe a 48-hour waiting period, whatever it may be that we think is best for women in these particular circumstances. None of that would be possible because the Constitution is the founding document of our state. So people need to understand this is not just like passing a bill that, maybe if you elect a new legislator, you can come in and pass a different bill to kind of trump that. No, this is in our Constitution. It's there to stay. And every case that comes to the Supreme Court or comes before a common pleas court will be based upon what it says in Ohio's Constitution when it comes to the issue of life. And that's a dangerous precedent for us to set.
Right, Peter. So we can see that this is a really dangerous initiative that we do not want in our Ohio Constitution because, we try to pass pro-life laws here in the state of Ohio, and it's not uncommon for then a judge to look at that law and try to determine, is this constitutional? And some judges might say it is. And then it goes on through the courts and people can bicker about whether it's constitutional or not. But if this amendment passes, then no pro-life law is going to be constitutional. It's going to be very clear that it's not. So now, what it is that we're doing, or what is it that your organization is doing in order to educate the public about this?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Last August, when we saw some of these other kind of initiatives happening around the country, we called together different groups, pro-life groups from around the state of Ohio. Quite frankly, some groups that hadn't worked together for a few years because of different political battles, and sometimes just because some individuals fail to pick up the phone and say, I'm sorry, and I forgive you. But we've all come around together around the same table because we recognize the importance of this and just what an existential threat this is. So last August, we've been preparing, and we reached out to the best people we know in the country, a group like Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, and asked for their assistance. And they've come alongside us as tremendous partners in the days that follow to help us kind of navigate some of these waters. So along the process, we also found kind of a main war room partner, if you will. They're a group that works with Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. They also help with the communications team at March for Life and also help with the Knights of Columbus and a few other groups. They're called CRC Advisors. And a good man there, Greg Mueller, who helps run CRC Advisors, is now helping us kind of with our communications team. So we have some national experience with us. These are individuals who have worked on presidential campaigns. They've also worked on judicial nominations to the Supreme Court. So these are really high quality individuals. Then we wanted to marry that, though, with some great Ohio political experience. So we asked a group called Swing State Strategies to join us to help us understand, hey, how do you fight back against a ballot initiative in our particular state? They have ballot initiative experience. So they're informing us on this is the best way to go about things here on the ground in the state. And then lastly, all these pro-life groups that have come together. And I might mention we have a growing list of coalition members, including Catholic medical associations around the state, which we're super excited to have. But all these pro-life coalition groups are going to be represented by a group called Protect Women Ohio. You can find out more information at protectwomenohio.com. Protect Women Ohio has 3 board members. I'm a board member that sits on behalf of Ohio Right to Life. We have a board member, Molly Smith, who sits there on behalf of the Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio. And then Aaron Baer from the Center for Christian Virtue is that last board member. So we have a great team that has been compiled or put together, I think, really through God's grace that are going to help us fight this thing. And you might be able to see it online or if you're watching, but you can go to the website, protectwomenohio.com, and you can watch what is our initial ad. So I mentioned Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America because, again, they've been a tremendous partner with us in this. And one of the things that they have done is financially come in and actually granted us a $5 million gift to begin the campaign. And what that has enabled us to do is to do some early polling here in the state of Ohio, and then to produce this first ad, an ad buy, which has begun across the state of Ohio for the next 4 weeks, which kind of lays out some of the challenges that are in this ballot initiative that I just enumerated just a second ago, but it does it in a very emotional and a very powerful way, trying to awaken our parents to this reality that if we don't fight back against this, I mean, even if you are pro-choice or you lean that way, are you okay if your 14 or 15-year-old daughter wants to go get an abortion without your knowledge? We think and we believe, and I think we've seen as well in polling, that most parents, even those who identify as liberals or progressives, don't think that that is a good idea. So we want to broaden the coalition as much as we can, educate the public. And so I really invite your listeners to go to protectwomenohio.com. You can learn more. You can also get some links to some great articles. So, for example, there was an article put out by Carrie Severino in Newsweek just this past week that talked about all the legal challenges that are in this particular amendment. Again, when I say that this would allow for late-term abortions on demand, it's not something that we're just inventing out of the thin air. This is scholars who have worked at the Supreme Court, and they have worked, on some serious litigation across the country. And so you can read their article that was up on the National Review as well. So all that can be found at protectwomenohio.com.
Okay, so it's still early and we're already getting involved. But what can, shall we say, the regular person in the pew do to help fight this ballot initiative?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. That's so very important. And I feel like I'm just that normal everyday person, but I just happen to sit in the particular chair I'm in at this time. So I appreciate the everyday individual who is pro-life and wants to be engaged in the campaign. So the first thing I would say for those individuals who want to be engaged in the campaign is to pray. We know that this battle for life, to build a culture of life, is foundationally a spiritual battle. And so I want to invite every one of your listeners to pray every day, particularly at the times of 7:14 a.m. and 7:14 p.m. Now, that is based upon 2 Chronicles 7:14, which states, "If my people who are called by my name humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin and heal their land." So those two time periods, it's an easy way to remember, hey, I've got to pray for this defeat of this ballot initiative upcoming 2 Chronicles 7:14. So 7:14 a.m. and 7:14 p.m., we invite you to pray. We also invite all priests and pastors and deacons to be willing to preach about this from the pulpit today. Don't wait until a month before we go to vote on this. And that's really tremendously important because one of the lessons we learned from these other states is that they had a good church response, but that church response came much too late. that these issues were already defined very early in the campaign. And it's one of the reasons we're trying to get this ad out there early as well, is we want to define this issue early on. But we need the help of pastors, priests, and deacons to do that from the pulpit as well. I'd also encourage you, there's some groups that get together for Eucharistic adoration. You can make this an intention of that holy hour that you have on a weekly or a monthly basis, whatever it may be. Offer this up as an intention at daily Mass, at your Sunday Masses as a family. All those little ways that we can offer this as prayer to Almighty God. I believe He'll hear our prayers and He will heal our land. Secondly, we're going to need volunteers. So we need to put our faith into action. The Greek word for faith is actually pistis, and it means not only having faith in someone or something, but it's having the faith of someone or something. So we're not only called to have faith in Jesus Christ, but to have the faith of Jesus Christ, a faith that was lived out, a faith that spilled out into loving and caring for others. So we invite individuals. You can go to protectwomenohio.com. You can sign up there to volunteer, and we'll get in contact with you that way. If you're more comfortable with your local pro-life organization, whether that's Cincinnati Right to Life or Dayton Right to Life or Ohio Life, you can certainly visit us at our website at ohiolife.org, and you can sign up to volunteer there as well. We're looking in particular for medical professionals to stand up and maybe lend their name to the cause, or if you're a part of a medical association. Because one of the narratives that we've heard from the other side is, because they have a group called Ohio Physicians for Reproductive Rights, is that everyone who's in the medical field believes in abortion, but we know that's simply not true. So I would pray, consider volunteering, because we're going to need help in going door to door to educate voters. We want to create a really robust door-to-door campaign where we're passing out flyers and things of that nature to our neighbors. And then lastly, and I think you mentioned this, Bob, as well, but it's going to be really imperative that we raise the money to compete with the deep pockets of the left. It's so ironic to me. I went to Google the other day and I Googled Protect Women Ohio. And already the left, Google, who's running Google, they have labeled our new pro-life organization as a dark money organization simply because we're labeled as a 501c4. Now, when the left announced their 501c4, there was nothing about them being a dark money organization, although there is plenty of dark money behind the abortion industry. But the reality is that the media is not going to be our friends in this battle. So to fight back against that, we need to get our ads out there on radio, on TV, on digital, on satellite, on broadcast, all those avenues where you can put up the video we just created, for example. We want to do that, but it's not cheap. If you run a week's worth of commercials, for example, in Cuyahoga County, it's over $500,000, and that's just cable TV. So it's going to cost a lot of money. And as we break it down, we believe we're probably going to have to raise close to 45, maybe even $50 million to compete here in the state of Ohio. And I know for a lot of you, that sounds like, well, I can't really help to that degree. But yes, you can. Every little bit helps, whether it's $5, whether it's $25 or $25,000, all of that tremendously helps our ability to reach more individuals in the state of Ohio. And we're not going to win this campaign without that financial help. So again, you can donate at protectwomenohio.com, or if you feel more comfortable with a local organization, you can certainly do that as well. And at Ohio Life, at ohiolife.org, you can find my contact information if you want to be more engaged in this fight from a volunteer perspective, from a prayer perspective. If you have ideas, we'd love to hear them. This is our battle together. As G.K. Chesterton once said, we're all in the same boat and we're all seasick. So no one has the magic answers to this. So we're in this fight together. So please reach out to us today.
Thanks, Peter. We're just going to show it never hurts to say something multiple times. ProtectWomenOhio.com. And right there at the top, not only can you learn all about it, but there's a donate link as well as a volunteer link. So it's very easy to learn how you can get involved in either one of those ways. Okay. So when you click on volunteer, what can you get involved in right now? And what is it that maybe is coming down the road as we move further along in this initiative?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One, already at Ohio Right to Life, we have some flyers and brochures. If you're interested in getting those, you can go to ohiolife.org. Just contact our communications director, Lizzie Whitmarsh. and you can order those, and we'll make sure that they get shipped to you or sent to you as quickly as possible. And then our new 501c4, which just started last week, will be producing materials very soon as well to educate the public on this. And then from a volunteer perspective, there's a couple things that we're going to need individuals to do. One is that kind of physical labor, going door to door, dropping off yard signs, things of that nature. But we're going to need individuals to work from home as well, making phone calls and calling individuals to let them know about this particular ballot initiative. And then if you really want to be engaged in a level where you're helping coordinate some of this work that we're doing on the ground, we're looking for lead coordinators in every county to say, you know what? I want to take ownership of my county. I want to be somebody who organizes the resistance here in Clark County or in Hamilton or wherever it may be. We're also looking for volunteer coordinators, individuals who will be particularly dedicated to reaching out to those churches, to the Respect Life groups, and getting people involved and engaged from a volunteer perspective from a local level. Being good Catholics, we believe in subsidiarity, right? That local issues are best handled by local people. So let's get the local church engaged and involved. The last position we're looking to fill kind of for this campaign is the fundraiser position. Maybe you're an individual of influence in your community, you run a business yourself. You can maybe make a list of individuals who could donate to the cause or campaign. We just hired a fundraiser for Protect Women Ohio, so we can put you in contact with her. I'm also happy to come around, travel all around the state to talk to individuals. I know Laura Streetman down there in Cincinnati would be as well, from Cincinnati Right to Life, to talk to individuals about how they can engage in this campaign, to give them the information that they need to feel comfortable to donating towards this cause and where exactly that money will go. So again, you can reach out to us at protectwomenohio.com. You can click that volunteer button, and one individual from the campaign will be in touch with you. Or again, you can go to your local pro-life organization and you can engage there as well, which is just as important locally on the ground.
All right. Well, thanks, Peter, because you're right. All of our local organizations, Cincinnati Right to Life, Dayton Right to Life, other city Right to Life organizations, Ohio Right to Life, our Catholic Conference of Ohio, and the other organizations were all working together on this issue. I love the 3 points you made. So first of all, your first point was pray. And I love that idea of 7:14. I mean, it's when you were telling me that, I was just thinking about the fact that every single day at just about that time, that is when I'm getting my girls ready for school and we're walking out the door, getting in the car. We could make that a particular point to pray at 7:14 every single morning. It'll be easy to integrate that into our regular routine. That's a great idea. I love it. And then the second thing you mentioned was volunteering. So you can go to protectwomenohio.com or ohiolife.org. And there are various levels of volunteering you can get involved in. You can get involved in just a little bit, or you can get very involved, depending on how much time you have and availability. And finally, of course, you can donate. You can donate directly to protectwomenohio.com or to your local Respect Life organization. Either way, it's all going to go to the same cause. Okay, Peter, so thanks for talking with us today about this new ballot initiative, how dangerous it is, and how it is that we can get the word out to the public to vote no on this in November. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, Bob, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you and your listeners today, and those in the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. Really appreciate it. Let me just end with this, that this is a serious battle that we're behind on. I've seen some of the early polling, and because the language is kind of nebulous and doesn't seem like it's that harmful, most individuals might be inclined to actually vote for this. So we have our work cut out for us. We need your help now more than ever. And if I might just encourage you with these words from actually our first president here in the United States of America, and that was George Washington. These are words that I'm reading consistently to inspire me to continue this fight, because again, I don't want abortion on demand through all 9 months of pregnancy here in the state of Ohio. I want parents to have a say in their children's lives when it comes to this issue. But if we don't fight, if we don't take up our arms, our rosaries, and fight together, and that's what's going to happen here in the state of Ohio. Planned Parenthood is going to have their day. So the words of George Washington are this, where he wrote that the time is near at hand, which must probably determine whether Americans are consigned to a state of wretchedness from which no human efforts will deliver them. The fate of unborn millions will now depend, under God, on the courage and conduct of this army. Our cruel and unrelenting enemy leaves us only the choice of brave resistance or the most abject submission. We have, therefore, to resolve to conquer or to die. We have to resolve as a church, as the people of God today, to conquer, to defeat this initiative, or preborn children will die. We can't let that happen here, Bob, in the state of Ohio. So please join us at protectwomenohio.com. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Peter, for what it is that you're doing, for your witness in life, and for how it is that you are leading the charge against this dangerous amendment right here in the state of Ohio. And I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners as well for tuning in on this episode of our Being Pro-Life series. Head to the website to view the links talked about in this episode at www.catholicaoc.org/beingprolife. Thank you again for joining us today. I look forward to being with you next time.